Gil Alexander. It's Kelly Bidlin. I usually will ask you how your weekend is, but I think I know how your weekend went based on some of your social meteors.
It was okay. Would you
like to explain to the folks what happened to you?
I had a nice 4 aces on Friday. I mean, if you don't think I gave some of it back like you're crazy, come on, it's me. Let's say that was also I don't know what I was in already, a 400 or 500 before I hit that. So yeah,
all right,
still nice though. Still
okay.
good. Yeah.
Net positive.
The hand pay is always a nice feeling.
Well done. Glad to have you here, despite your riches. I didn't know if you were going to show up on Monday or not. We will talk a whole bunch of college basketball today. Mike Samich will join us. Samo bombing. All of these conference tournament odds are out now for all the Power 5 conferences and beyond. This is really, truly conference week. The 4 automatic bids have already been given out. We'll get into all that. We'll update the formula, our penultimate update of the formula this year prior to the tournament. One team fell out of the actual qualifications for the college basketball formula, the tried and true.
So what are we down to, like 6 now?
5. 5 with a bunch just on the outside looking in. Still a lot, 5. But
and a bunch right there.
On a bunch right there. We'll see how many end up in this spot next week, but we'll get into that momentarily. First, though, let's talk some NFL from this weekend because there was a bunch, and we don't want to ignore it. Certainly there was some of the lesser moves that may not have gotten on your radar. Jerry Jeudy goes from the Broncos to the Browns. I don't know if you saw Mark Schlereth's, him a former Bronco, of course. He a former Bronco and a Bronco fan saying good riddance. Doesn't think Jerry Judy's a very good football player, so the Browns add Jeudy nonetheless in a packed AFC North, of course. Chris Jones extension, there's a bunch of that stuff. But the quarterbacks obviously take the headlines. We're still waiting to hear. Kirk Cousins, by the way, is going to be a big week in free agency. Kirk Cousins reportedly supposed to notify the Vikings of his decision last night. We don't have word on that quite yet. Waiting for that domino to fall. But Baker Mayfield signed an extension, as we sort of thought when Mike Evans did so with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Did that mean that Baker Mayfield would follow suit? And he did. 3-year, $100 million contract, $50 million guaranteed, could be worth up to $115 million. That per NFL Network, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. So Baker Mayfield stays in Tampa Bay. We'll crescendo on these. Mac Jones traded by the Patriots to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. So the Patriots, who tried to do good by Mac Jones, by the way, they asked him, well, what would you like to do? Obviously, they're moving on with Gerard Mayo, and the new administration over there in New England, clearly now drafting a quarterback, if there was any doubt. Mac Jones scuttled to the Jaguars. And before we move on to the Russell Wilson part of this, I just want to sort of say a couple things. One, Mac Jones, perhaps starting the backup quarterback era of his career. Maybe not. He'll be a free agent a year from now. So, if things go differently, maybe he will find a starting job somewhere later in his career. But for right now, the Jaguars, what does Chris Collinsworth say? Most important position in football is quarterback. Second most is backup quarterback. So good on the Jaguars. I think even those who dislike Mac Jones don't hate the idea of him being a backup quarterback on your roster.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for him. I think it's great. That was a great move for the Jags, and for the Patriots, it's whatever. It's time to start over, anyways, right? But, you bring him in as a backup. I mean, are we all sold on Trevor Lawrence for sure? And I'm not trying to say there's any Mac Jones over Trevor Lawrence thing, but as you often say, is there some benefit to a guy sitting on the bench and learning for a year when Mac Jones really didn't get that time in New England?
Well, it's also, I asked the question about Trevor Lawrence when he was being drafted. Are we sure he's generational? Before I could even finish the word generational, oh, yes, he's absolutely generational. I don't know that we know that. And I just want to just broader NFL sort of history thing on this, because it just, with the draft a little more than a month away, it's the reminder, the PSA again, that all these teams, now for our betting, teams go crazy with quarterbacks. We know that, so we're going to always keep that in mind. But does it really pan out historically? And Kelly, if you're of a certain age, the 1983 NFL draft, when 6 quarterbacks were drafted in the first round, is really the benchmark of great NFL quarterback drafts, because 3 Hall of Famers came out of that 83 first round. John Elway, Jim Kelly, Dan Marino. Blackledge, O'Brien, and Eason were the other three, by the way, but 3 Hall of Famers in that class. And so it's sort of the drug that is being chased all these years. And in modern day, 2020, the draft during the pandemic, that's really the modern day equivalent where we had Burrow and Tua and Herbert and Love. Got to throw him in there now, and Jalen Hurts. Those were 5 quarterbacks drafted in the 2020 draft where you're like, oh, wow. I mean, all 5 of those guys have a serious place in the league here 3-4 years out. But since then is more the norm, right? So 83 is one thing. 2020 was another thing. Let's just go through these. 2021, since we bring up Trevor Lawrence, right? Trevor Lawrence was number 1 pick in the draft. Okay. Trevor Lawrence, generational or not, I don't know. Has he really improved through his first years in the league? I think the jury's still out on that. What kind of improvement? You can debate that. But it was Lawrence, it was Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, remember the Niners famously trading up to draft. 4 picks, 3 of which were first-rounders. Justin Fields, to say the jury's still out on him would be the understatement of the year. And Mac Jones, all in the top 15 of that draft. Mac Jones now going to be Trevor Lawrence's backup. So think about that. I mean, Lawrence at best right now with that group. The next year, 2022, that was the draft where only Kenny Pickett was picked in the first round. Kenny Pickett now, as we're about to get to, Russell Wilson is the de facto starter now, one would say, in Pittsburgh, as he now takes a 1-year deal with the Steelers, a very team-friendly deal, still going to cost the Broncos $85 million in terms of the cap hit. But it was Pickett, and here are the other names after that in the draft. Ritter, Willis, Corral, Zappi, Howell. Remember, until you get to Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, that draft of quarterbacks is irrelevant.
Yeah, it was a dud.
By the way, we talked about how the Niners ended up with Brock Purdy in the last pick of the draft. Adam Schefter has a great story about this. True story. 2017, that was the Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson draft. The Niners had the 3rd pick in the draft. They had no interest in either Mahomes, Watson, or any other top-tier quarterback because they thought Kirk Cousins would leave Washington the next year and come to them. So they didn't even research quarterbacks at the top of the draft with any kind of depth. So they end up picking Solomon Thomas III. They're like, we're getting Kirk Cousins. Then Halloween comes around, and the Patriots are like, we need to move from Jimmy Garoppolo. Just give us a 2nd-round pick. So that scuttles the Kirk Cousins thing. The Niners end up with Jimmy G. Remember, at that time, Jimmy G was thought to be just as good, if not better, than Kirk Cousins. The only quarterback they end up drafting, and the only one they scouted that year, was mid-round quarterback, was C.J. Beathard. The Niners end up picking him in the 3rd round. They trade up to pick him, by the way. 4 years later, when he leaves to go to Jacksonville, they get a compensatory pick, Brock Purdy. All those years later. Just shows you, like,
amazing
the quarterback nonsense that goes on in these drafts and how you end up with who you end up with is oftentimes accidental.
I always think about, too, with Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, too. Like, you know there was, we haven't really heard this, but you know there was like 4 or 5 teams that are like, oh, great, that guy will be like an undrafted free agent. We can bring him in for a workout. I wanted to get a closer look at him. And then he gets drafted, and you're like, oh, no, whatever. No big deal.
By the way, just with a bow on this, last year, this past draft, Bryce Young, number 1 pick in the draft. Young, to say the jury's out again, understatement. Stroud, okay, potential superstar, at least after 1 year, we think so. Richardson got hurt, we don't know yet. And then after that, Levis, Hooker, Hayner, Bennett, O'Connell, Toon, DTR, Clifford, Hall. You go down, Duggan. By the way, undrafted quarterbacks, Tyson Bagent, secret agent man, and Tommy DeVito. They got more run than all those other guys. So right now it's Stroud, Richardson, and who knows. So anyway, that's the point of all that. So Mac Jones on his way to Jacksonville. Obviously, he's a backup quarterback, doesn't move any betting lines. Russell Wilson does go to the Steelers. That was the big announcement. He was on social media last night. He did the whole renegade Steelers terrible towels video. Said he's grateful. He is the de facto starter with Kenny Pickett being his backup. That's the only other quarterback on the Steelers roster right now. Mason Rudolph's a free agent. Mitch Trubisky already in Buffalo. Did it move a number? It did not. Steelers remain 10-1, the long shot to win the very crowded AFC North, with obviously Baltimore and Cincinnati at the top and Cleveland in between. But as we discussed last week, from the Steelers' perspective, their attitude is simply, hey, look, we're good. Obviously, we got horrible quarterback play. They wouldn't say this out loud, but this is a truth serum. Russell Wilson will make us a playoff team. Because if you look at Russell Wilson's raw stats, by the way, from his 2 years in Denver, they don't suck.
Not terrible. No.
But anyway, that's their idea. Would it trigger any bet for you? Do you think there is a groundswell of people who are like, wow, Russell Wilson is on the Steelers. We must make this bet?
No. The best I can say is if you were someone like me who was likely, for a third straight year, targeting a Steelers under win total bet,
yeah,
I'll probably stay away now, Gil. You know I like Russell Wilson enough. I do have enough belief there that him with Mike Tomlin, they could make some noise in a division that should be very, very tough.
Yes. They're not the shortest of the last. Let's put it this way. They're not the shortest of the longest shots in any division. That distinction holds the Vikings right now in the NFC North, who are like plus 550 as the fourth shot in the NFC North. But 10-1 in what many believe is the toughest division in all of football. The real sort of amusing thing as we're going through this, I'm thinking in my head, our famous Mike Tomlin stat that we always joke about. Could Russell Wilson be the guy to kill Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season streak?
See, no, I feel like he's the perfect quarterback to get you just to 9 wins. He's the perfect quarterback to get you to 9.
You think Tomlin's like, I need somebody who's guaranteeing me another 9-8 year? We shall see. So those are the moves. Expect a big week of moves. We'll see if the betting needle moves on any of those coming. College basketball formula update next.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Get ready for the ultimate slam dunk. Download the free VSiN college basketball betting primer and get full VSiN Pro access until March 17th. This primer will have tournament betting tips and trends for every round, plus strategies for brackets and betting futures. Bet the tournament smarter this year. Download the free men's college basketball betting primer now and get free VSiN Pro access to everything we do through March 17th at VSiN.com/guide. That's VSIN.com/guide. Gil Alexander, Kelly Bidlin, live from Bar Canada here at the D in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. Are you a little messed up with the tournament being like a week later than normal this year?
Yeah.
Like Selection Sunday should have been yesterday.
Right, yeah.
Right?
It feels like this weird... Feels like the week off in between the Super Bowl almost. You know what I mean? Where you get this little lengthier dip than we're used to.
Except for the fact that we have awesome basketball in the meantime, as opposed to the Super Bowl where we got nothing at all. You see the Purdue-Wisconsin bad beat?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Purdue minus 8.5. Like all the bets on them. They're up 10. All they have to do is run out the clock, and dude just gets pickpocketed. Meaningless bucket.
Ugh.
Add some bad beats into the mix. So here's where it stands right now before we get to the formula. 4 auto bids have already been decided. 4 automatic bids in the NCAA tournament, which, again, these are just the intrigue on all of these are just amazing. In a tournament, by the way, we talk about auto bids versus at large. How that breakdown's 32 automatic bids, 36 at large per the 68 teams. Remember with the play-ins that happened in the tournaments. The 4 auto bids thus far, the longest shot that has gotten in there. Can you give it up for the Longwood Lancers, Kelly?
Let's go.
The Longwood Lancers are in. First of all, let me just say today, all full college basketball, all tournaments now, Coastal semis, Big Sky, couple games feeding the semis, Horizon semis, Southland second round, Summit semis, West Coast Conference semis finally getting underway. And we have 2 auto bids today, the Sun Belt Championship and the Southern Championship. Sun Belt between Arkansas State and James Madison, Southern between Tennessee State and Samford. We will get into all of that with Mike Somich and with Jim Root from 3-Man Weave added to the show as well. So we'll get all the conference tournament plays from all these guys. But yesterday, or this weekend, I should say, here are again the 4 auto bids. First one was on Saturday, Ohio Valley in the Ohio Valley Conference. Morehead State, the Eagles of Morehead State, who were in a 3-way tie at the top of that conference regular season Even though they were the regular season champs, they were the number 3 seed in the tournament. They were the short shots to win the tournament, and they do get it done. Morehead State cashes for everybody who had them plus 115 pre-flop in that tournament. They are the Ohio Valley tournament champs. They are on their way to the tournament. And then yesterday you had 3. Well, actually, Longwood was before that, pardon me, in the Big South. Longwood is the longest of the bunch, 13-1 shot if you had Longwood, the 5th seed in the Big South Conference, 13-1 on Longwood. And then the ASUN in the Missouri Valley yesterday was concurrent. The Stetson Hatters, the 2nd seed in the Atlantic Sun Tournament, they win it as a plus 350 pre-flop play in the Atlantic Sun Tournament. Stetson gets it done yesterday against Austin P. 52 years it has taken Stetson to advance to March Madness. And these are all the amazing stories that go on in college basketball. Only Northwestern and Colgate took longer, took more years than the 52 it took for Stetson to get into March Madness.
Really?
It's just
wow.
Awesome. Stories like that. The Stetson Hatters.
I bought a car once near Stetson University.
Did you?
That's about all I got on
Closest
Stetson.
you got to playing for that team?
Yeah.
And then the Missouri Valley, if you missed this game, that was just awesome. Indiana State against Drake yesterday. Drake ends up getting it done. Drake was the number 2 seed. They were about plus 210 pre-flop in the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament. They were up 16 fairly late against the Sycamores, and Larry Joe Bird couldn't have done the comeback any better for Indiana State. They come all the way back. They take a lead. Drake takes the punch and still gets it done. Some late heroics from Drake, so they're on their way to the tournament. And Indiana State, man, this is going to be one of these great barometer teams of will the committee, because the committee ought to let them in. It shouldn't even be a question.
Right? They got him.
Shouldn't even be a question. But whenever you see these first 4 in, first 4 outs, right, it's littered with, big conference, also, like lamos, like Virginia,
Wake Forest.
Villanova's in there. Sorry, Villanova. But Virginia's like the best example of that. Like, are you gonna take a team like Indiana State out in, are you gonna put Virginia in at the expense of a team like Indiana State? Please, God, no. Let's not do something like that.
That's gonna be maddening. How many times we've heard on this show from other people I've talked to? I feel like Indiana State's been like the dark horse, like long shot for the past 2 months that people like from a betting side.
Tomorrow, big tournament starting. ACC, A10, Big 12, Conference USA, the Metro Atlantic. Wednesday, American starts, Big East, Big 10, Big West, MEAC, Mountain West, Pac-12, SEC, SWAC, WAC. Going to be so great. And, of course, the rest of the week, that will continue. Not to mention the fact that we have auto bids in the Coastal Horizon, Northeast, Summit, and West Coast to be determined tomorrow, and then the Big Sky Patriot League in Southland on Wednesday. Here is your championship formula update. Once again, if you're unfamiliar, these are tried and true criteria that have worked for years and years with a very rare exception. And this year, we have a bit of a log jam. Now, here's the thing. The point of this formula is that as mayhem-ridden, as pandemonium, as madness-ridden as March Madness is, it's right in the name, the big dance, the NCAA tournament, that's really a first and second round thing, but really to determine a champion is oftentimes quite an easy task, like with a formula like this, as you will see. But this year, it may not have done the job in winnowing it down. Here's the deal. Last 33 champs had more assists than turnovers. 32 of the last 33 had a head coach with Sweet 16 experience. The only exception, everybody say it together. Actually, there's 2. It's 31 of 33 now, pardon me. The only 2 exceptions, the 2014 UConn Huskies with Kevin Ollie. That was the Shabazz Napier-led Huskies. And then last year, Danny Hurley didn't have any Sweet 16 experience when he took the Huskies to the championship. 27 of the last 28 went to the tournament with at least 3 wins versus teams in the top 10% of RPI. Yes, RPI, that's how long we've been doing this. The only exception, the 2014 UConn Huskies. Last 28 champs had a top 75 strength of schedule. 20 of the last 21 champs were in the top 20 in adjusted offensive efficiency at Ken Baum. Only exception, the 2014 UConn Huskies. They were 39th, by the way, if you're scoring at home in adjusted offensive efficiency. And then 20 of the last 21 champs, the only non-UConn exception in any of this, top 20 in adjusted defensive efficiency. The 2021 Baylor Bears finished 22nd in adjusted defensive efficiency. So really, That's it. Think about what we're talking about. 33 years, 33 years, 28 years, 28 years, 21 years, 21 years. You can name those few exceptions to all of this. And if you're wondering why we keep it to those, because back in the day, like if you're old enough, Jim Valvano's NC State Wolfpack in 83, Raleigh Massimino's Villanova Wildcats in 85, that stuff don't happen anymore. Just doesn't. So this formula this year, who qualifies under those 6 criteria? Who qualifies, Kelly? The Houston Cougars do. 11th adjusted offensive efficiency, 1st in defensive efficiency over at KenPom. By the way, only the KenPom numbers are the ones that are allowed to adjust during the tournament itself per this formula. UConn, 3rd and 13th, respectively, adjusted offense and defense at KenPom. They qualify. So Houston, UConn. Arizona, Wildcats qualify 8th and 15th. Also all the other criteria they meet. Auburn, Bruce Pearl, baby, 13th and 6th offense and defense. And Marquette, yes, Shaka Smart. Marquette, 19th and 18th adjusted offense and defense. Those are the 5 teams that qualify. If you're noticing there's one omission from last week, that is because Tennessee fell out. Tennessee fell out. They had a 6-game winning streak. They were filling up the bucket at a great rate with great efficiency. Not so much against South Carolina. A win against South Carolina, and then yesterday's loss to Kentucky, or this weekend's loss to Kentucky. Tennessee falls out 25th to 25th in adjusted offensive efficiency, 3rd defense. So they're on the outside looking in, as is Purdue, which remains 1st on offense, 21st in defense. And again, all the other criteria are met as well. Creighton, remember, qualified when they got their 3rd win against top 10% RPI last week against Marquette. So they are 10th and 22nd just on the outside looking in per those metrics. Duke, 7th and 23rd after their loss to North Carolina. And speaking of the heels, 26th and 5th offense and defense. So you got 5 on the inside. Houston, UConn, Arizona, Auburn, Marquette. They qualify now. And 5 others, Tennessee, Purdue, Creighton, Duke, and Carolina, just on the outside looking in. We'll do our last update to this 1 week from today.
It's fascinating, man. It's fascinating to track all this stuff. Yeah, Purdue, one on the outside, right, from a defensive.
Yeah, and again, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it can adjust during the tournament, but that's the thing. As just Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday next week, going to be unbelievable. The upsets are going to abound. But an eventual winner, actually kind of easy to determine based on this. We'll come back. College Hoops with Jim Root. Hockey with Jake Hahn next.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Not a registered VSiN.com user yet? Well, create a free account today and get VSiN Pro access to everything we do through NCAA Championship Week leading up to Selection Sunday. Sign up today at VSiN.com/Champ Week and get instant VSiN Pro access, including our daily best bets with the leaderboard to see which VSiN expert has the hot hand, betting splits to show you where the money and bets are moving for every game, betting systems, premium analysis, and 24/7 video access, plus our all-new NCAA Tournament Betting Primer. Don't miss out on this VSiN Pro free preview to help you bet the tournament smarter. Create a free account now at VSiN.com/Champ Week and get full VSiN Pro access from now through March 17th. That's VSIN.com/Champ Week.
I don't know who's playing in the promo picture, but do you think the shot's going to go in or no?
Yeah, I do. I think
I think so too.
Yeah, I think the defense is late.
I think it's late. I think the help defense is late. Yes.
I think it's going in.
Primary defender got beat. Help defense is late.
I quite enjoyed going down a draft memory lane in the first segment of the show.
That was good.
Well, it just shows you, man. It's the most inexact science there could possibly be.
It is. I also think we've hit a point where I think teams are doing this intelligently. Sometimes it's going to look bad when we look back at it, but if you don't have a quarterback in this league, you got nothing. So I'm fine with teams taking shots on quarterbacks.
That is the puzzle, right? You are nothing without a quarterback. Hey, take a fan of the Washington Commodores like myself. Trust me, I know. If you do not have a quarterback, you have nothing.
Yeah, nothing. So
doesn't matter what you have surrounding you, got nothing. So that is why teams will go nuts on draft day. They will move mountains to get a guy who they pray, because a lot of it is prayer, let's be honest, based on, again, everything we talked about in the first segment, pray that it pans out. By the way, this bit of NFL news before we get to these, because we do have a second, third, and fourth pick in the draft we want to talk about here, because those props are out. But this just in, the Bengals franchise wide receiver T. Higgins has requested a trade per sources. Higgins loves Cincinnati and hoped to be with the team long-term, but is disappointed that the team has not had any talks about a long-term contract extension since March of 2023. This per Adam Schefter. So Shefty goes on to say he's ready to move on to a new home. So T. Higgins.
Yeah, that's interesting.
See if they grant that or say to him, "Hey T, let's have a conversation."
Some of this timing stuff's just interesting to me, and I don't know if it's NFL, league year rule stuff that I'm just not completely aware of. But I don't know if we would have been shocked to hear this news, but why wouldn't we have heard it right away after they tagged him? You know what I mean? Like, why'd you need a week to decide you were unhappy with this?
That's right. Maybe he stewed on it, or maybe we just didn't have a report about it, whatever. By the way, that's why I call him the franchise franchise wide receiver, because he was franchise tagged, I should say.
Well, and I say it because isn't it? You've got Boyd coming up here who can walk away, right? Isn't he? He's able to walk away and head to another team, and you might try to figure something out with Boyd if you knew Higgins was going to be demanding to leave. So, I don't know. The timing's interesting to me. The timing's interesting on the Russell Wilson stuff too.
Well, the Russell Wilson thing, though, I think from a Russell Wilson perspective, I don't know that he knew if he was going to get an offer.
Yeah,
and so he was probably like, "Yes, I'll take it."
It is starting to feel me and I were talking about that during the break after that, but it's starting to feel like it is a game of musical chairs a bit with these quarterbacks, and I think Russ might have been smart grabbing a spot while he could, because
totally.
Where's Justin Fields going right now?
Still don't know.
That's getting awkward.
Still don't know. Still have no idea. By the way, the T. Higgins thing also feels like the kind of thing that if Joe Burrow just put his arm around him, would get dissipated. I could be wrong, but that's what that feels like to me.
I hope so.
If you're a guy who's got I've already got Bengals bets.
Exactly.
So
somehow you and I already have Bengals division bets.
Already got him to win the division. All right, number 2 pick in the draft, Caleb Williams, of course, the presumptive number 1 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. You can bet on number 2 now at DraftKings, where Jaden Daniels and Drake May's a coin flip.
Yeah, so second and third have been up, but these odds have shifted. So Drake May was the favorite here.
Oh, 4th and 5th are brand new.
Yeah, 4th and 5th brand new. Yeah.
Drake May was the favorite, but this is now a coin flip between Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Pardon me. Everybody else double digits and longer, starting with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams, lest he somehow not get picked first. J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr. also listed. But it's Daniels and May. It's a coin flip. It's Washington at number 2. It is New England at number 3 currently. And quite frankly, I don't have any sense from Washington where they would lean if they decide to use this pick, which I think they will. So I think that's probably accurate. Number 3, Drake May is a tick shorter than Jaden Daniels. Drake May's plus 105, Jaden Daniels plus 110. Does that indicate to you that Washington is slightly leaning towards Jaden Daniels? I hope so. But do I know? Listen, we just went through a whole segment of people who are NFL professionals have no idea how good these guys are going to be. I don't know who's going to be great long-term here. I just like the idea of a mobile quarterback where the floor is higher.
I'm fairly confident at this point that Jaden Daniels is number 2.
I hope so.
Because now we're getting into the discussion of it's the McCarthy Drake May stuff we've been hearing here recently, right? Drake May could fall. McCarthy could be the 3rd quarterback to go. I don't know. It's fascinating.
We really got to the point where J.J. McCarthy is going to be the number 3 quarterback.
There are people talking about it like that.
4th is up now. Number 4 pick. Now, this is where Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the favorite, and yes, he is, minus 250. Daniels, McCarthy, both plus 650. Malik Neighbors, talk about another wideout, jumps in there at 10-1, then Drake May at 14-1. Everybody else longer, including Romeo Dunze, who's at 18-1.
Yeah, the Mac Jones move, I think Gil solidifies this even more. This is the one draft bet I have in. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. It's not to be fourth overall. It is to be drafted by the Cardinals, who are fourth right now. But I think with Mac Jones going, I think we're looking at quarterback off the top.
I do.
And then I think it's just it's so obvious for the Cardinals. I mean, you need a wide receiver. You got a good offense there. Kyler Murray's going to be back there this year. I mean, you got an okay offense. You add Marvin Harrison Jr., though, this offense could start to look a whole lot better from what it looked like last year.
But just again, think about what we were talking about. The whole first segment about the checkered, and I'm being kind, history of drafting quarterbacks, right? 83 massive draft, 2020 massive draft of quarterbacks in terms of success. Everything else sort of checkered. Some since 2020 just plain bad. But yet, as Kelly just pointed out, you are going to get people who realize without a quarterback, without hitting the lottery pick, you're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you must. All right, what about the 5th pick in the draft? Offensive tackle from Notre Dame, Joe Alt, is your short shot at plus 220. Remember, it's the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh who have the 5th pick in the draft. And if you're Harbaugh, doesn't it make sense with Justin Herbert as your quarterback to say, I'm going to be here a while. This is going to be my franchise quarterback. Let me protect the dude with my first pick. I'll have this guy for a decade. Joe Alt plus 220.
Yeah.
Makes all the sense in the world.
I think so, except I think there's going to be stuff these next few weeks. Let's see if the Chargers do anything with some of the other players on their roster. Like there's been some rumors, rumbling around about some of the defensive guys getting shipped off that are getting paid big money right now. See if anything happens. I'm with you, though. I think Joe Alt is maybe not Joe Alt, but I think it's one of the offensive tackles. Joe Alt has been the guy who's always, this whole time has been kind of number one in most people's rankings for that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. We've also heard this could be maybe the highest spot we see Brock Bowers possibly go.
Well, after Alt, it's nothing but receiver / tight end, right? It's Malik Neighbors at plus 380. It's Brock Bowers from Georgia at plus 475. And it's Odunze at 6-1. So, by the way, J.J. McCarthy, it should be noted, just because of the Harbaugh connection. They're not going to draft at plus 850. And, you've got Justin Herbert. That would be the most ridiculous pick in the world. But if you believe in the Harbaugh-McCarthy love affair, then you would do that.
If you really believe it, I'm sure, Gil, you'd trade away Herbert for, 3 first-rounders?
Of all of those that we just went through, I'm going to assume number 2 and number 3 because it's more of a coin flip between May and Daniels. That's not going to be your answer. But what's the pick here on the board of everything we just went through that you like the best? If you had to make one play, would it be laying the juice with Marvin Harrison at 4, or would it be taking a shot at Alt at plus 220?
Harrison, just because I've already done it. So that would be my answer. And honestly, second, though, would be Jaden Daniels, number 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'd go Alt plus 220 at 5.
That one makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense.
Because the bang for your buck, and it makes too much sense.
I don't know what's going on with Drake May and J.J. McCarthy right now, but I feel like your Commanders are going Jaden Daniels.
I'd love it. What could possibly go wrong, Kelly?
Right. And I also don't believe anything about, though, Jaden Daniels jumping Caleb Williams.
No, I don't believe that either. I don't either. We'll come back, a little hockey break, and then we'll get into some college basketball again with Jim Root and Mike Somich. A whole bunch of college basketball coming up. Hockey with Jay Kahn on the other side. Numbers Game, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
With so many bottles to choose from, it's easy to find your favorite, all at the lowest prices for over 30 years. Find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine & More. Drink responsibly. Be 21. It's Gil Alexander. It's Kelly Bidlin. Live from Barcanada, the Barrage, here at the D, Las Vegas. I read the right one, didn't I, Kelly? I sure did. Yes? No? Kelly is dumbfounded over there in the corner. He has no idea.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I don't know if that means I was right, but I did a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, we get tweets, by the way, beating the book. Haven't read any tweets today. Let me read some tweets. How about that? This is from Las Vegas 514. Yo, he's talking as a Commodes fan. We have had nothing for a very long time. Hopefully, Jaden Daniels will change that. Let's go. Yeah, man. From your lips to God, as my mom used to say. Mike Stacks, when the 2024 NFL schedule comes out, I will be excited to see what week Russell Wilson and the Steelers head to Denver to whoop Sean Payton's Broncos. I hope it's week 1. Oh my God. I want the comeuppance myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't spoken to him in a while. He was on when I was on vacation, I believe. But it is always my pleasure to have on the show the co-host of The Point and the Fantasy Hockey Show on Sirius XM NHL. It's our buddy Jake Hahn at JHahn4, the number 4 on Twitter. He comes to us through the powers of the progressive guest line. How you doing, Jake?
Doing good, Gil. I was sorry I missed you on vacation, but I hope you had a well-deserved time off. And I know it can't be too far away from the NHL playoffs now that I'm talking to you boys. So happy to be on with you today.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped. Before we talk hockey, though, I know you're also a golf guy. Scotty Scheffler runs away with the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Pardon me, does so by 5 strokes on the strength of a 6-under final round. How did you do in this tournament, and what's your overall sort of golf takeaway here from early in the year?
Well, I finally got beat by Scotty Scheffler. I think like a lot of people that bet outright golf, we're sort of waiting for that to happen, right? And if you looked at his ball striking numbers over the last, even really going back to last year's season, it was incredible. It's as good as as really we've seen in golf in recent memory. And you always just sort of thought, okay, if he ever finds the putter, if he can ever put it together, even for 2 rounds, not even for 4 rounds, if he could find the putter, he's just going to blitz the field and he's going to win by a lot. And I didn't know when that was going to come, but I think we all knew it was coming. So it comes over the weekend. He found the putter. It felt like sometime late on Friday, he rolled in like a 45-footer. And then from there, he really started to find it. I had Will Zalatoris and Hideki Matsuyama, so I had a fighting chance going into Sunday, but hey, when the best golfer in the world shows up and plays around like that, sometimes you just got to tip the cap, guys. And it's on to the Players' Championship, which is the spot that Scotty Scheffler blitzed the field last year. So maybe he feels like going back to back.
Has this been, I'll bring Kelly in for this too, has this been a sobering golf period for those of you who are into golf handicapping weekly?
Yeah, I would say it sure was the beginning of the year. It's been tough. It's been tough fighting through and tough grinding out some dollars here and there. Jake, I happened to hit Scotty live. Got in him on Friday when he was started to roll in some of those putts and started to look like he was making a move. But we were talking about it even yesterday. At least yesterday's leaderboard, like final leaderboard, looks like what a PGA Tour, leaderboard at the end of a big event should look like at least.
For me too, I had Zalatoris, and on Saturday at one point he had a 5-shot lead, and I thought, okay, at the very least I'm going to get into a good hedge position for Sunday, and I couldn't believe looking at the final leaderboard that at one point Zalatoris had a 5-shot lead with how much Scheffler actually won the tournament by. So for me, I have hit a couple outrights this year. So it's kept me afloat. Nice, a big Hideki number a few weeks ago. Nick Taylor at the Waste Management as well. So I've been lucky to hit a couple of big numbers. But it's been a weird season. A lot of long shots, and like Kelly just said, I think as a golf fan, I think I was more frustrated about yesterday just not being that fun to watch, right? And look, you tip your cap to a great player playing great golf, but I was excited for a tight leaderboard down the stretch, and ultimately we didn't get that. So maybe we get that at the Players this weekend.
Okay, let's go to hockey. Someone's landing on the NHL right now, Jake. So you're talking about, you're beyond, you're beyond the quarter pole of the season. We're almost there to the NHL playoffs. Obviously, that starts in April. The grind will finally culminate in the tournament. If someone is like, okay, I haven't seen any hockey this year, I want to make a long shot play. What team that is not one of the conventional suspects, what team is out there that you think might have value in the futures market right now?
Yeah, it's a good question, Gil. And I've come on with you in the past, and we've talked the futures market, and we've sort of watched it take shape over the course of the latter part of the year. And in previous years, especially going back to the last 2 years, we've had a team to beat, right? A team that everybody sort of looks at and says, okay, this is clearly the best team. Can anybody beat this team? 2 years ago, it was the Colorado Avalanche. Ultimately, Colorado won the Stanley Cup, and they were the team to beat, and no one beat them. Last year, it was the Boston Bruins. Boston had a unbelievable historic regular season, and we were asking the question, okay, who can beat this team in the playoffs? Different story last year. Boston loses in the first round, so they didn't have the Colorado type season, and we actually saw a couple teams from that middle part of the board go on a run, one way deeper down in Florida, and obviously Vegas, who was a team people were certainly in on and betting, but not the favorite going in and ultimately winning the Stanley Cup last year. So this year's completely different, guys. It's been 10, 11 teams, and the odds makers have not taken a stance at all this year on a top team. Now, it's finally shifted a little bit towards the Florida Panthers at the top. I think the whole hockey community sort of agrees that this is the best team in the NHL right now, but not by a significantly wide margin. And I think you're gonna see a lot of teams in that 10 to 14 to 1 range that you could find some value on. It honestly is a take your pick approach going into the playoffs this year. You could take two teams, maybe one from the East, one from the West, and feel pretty good about their chances, guys. It is completely wide open this year. I do agree with everybody that Florida is probably the team to beat and the top team in the league, in my opinion. I think they're the best team, but they are beatable. I don't look at them as this juggernaut that's just going to roll through everybody. I think they will face some challenges. So ultimately, I'm looking at a team like the Dallas Stars, who I think are built for a long playoff run with how deep they are offensively. Like to see Ottinger play a little bit better between the pipes, but I like what they have. I like what they did at the deadline on the back end, bringing in Chris Tanev. So Dallas is a team for me I've got my eye on. And if you need to go deeper down the board, I do think the LA Kings are at least worth a look here, but I want to see how they play down the stretch. That's just more of a number play than anything else. But Dallas is the team I've got my eye on amidst that pack of teams between 10 and 14 to 1.
Okay. You got to the LA Kings there, but you still want to see how they do down the stretch. I understand. So we're not committing to them. Let me ask it the opposite way. What's a team that others believe in that you don't believe in?
That's another great question. And I think when you're really looking at it, I go back to the Boston Bruins, and I don't know how much belief there is in them this year. And it looks like there's a very strong possibility that they would face the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round. Now, Boston has dominated that matchup this year. They've won every game. So I think a lot of people are going to believe in Boston in that series against the Maple Leafs, assuming that it does happen. They could still finish first in the Atlantic, and it would actually be Florida and Toronto likely in the first round. But if it is Boston-Toronto, I think a lot of people are going to take Boston strictly based off of the regular season record. And obviously there's history there too, that Boston generally dominates that matchup. I'm just not as sold right now on that Boston Bruins roster. I still think there's some holes up front in terms of depth. And I don't know, I worry sometimes about a team that dominates the regular season matchup and then has to kind of throw that all out the window and start a new playoff series. So I think the Bruins are the team for me that I'm going to be staying away from this year.
All right, and give us just a brief thing so I can be smart to my to the guys who work, at my building who are huge Vegas Golden Knights fans. What happened to this team this year after just a scorching start to the season?
Yeah, injuries. Honestly, I have to go back to injuries. I mean, they didn't have their starting goaltender Adin Hill for a very long period of time. He is back now. Had a couple of good games, but he has been struggling a little bit. I think they're relying on him a little bit too much. They made some huge moves at the deadline, as Vegas does. They're one of the more aggressive organizations in the National Hockey League, if not the most aggressive, and it's a big reason why they won the Stanley Cup last year. So look, they're still the defending champs. Ultimately, it's not been a great regular season for them, but their playoff spot, even though it kind of looked like it was maybe in jeopardy there last week, just not enough from the chase pack teams, I think, to worry about it too much. So ultimately, they should be a part of the dance, and I think they can hit the reset button a little bit. Mark Stone is a huge question mark. He's out for the rest of the regular season. There's a chance he comes back for the playoffs, but a lacerated spleen, that certainly does not sound good for his chances to play come playoff time. And yeah, he's an important part of that lineup. But they get Jack Eichel back. Adin Hill's going to continue to get acclimated. If he can find his form before the playoffs, they make a big splash going out and getting a top defenseman in Noah Hannafin at the deadline. Then they make the Tomas Hertl trade, and it sounds like he's going to play some hockey late in the regular season. So don't sleep on the Vegas Golden Knights going back-to-back here, guys. I think this is a team that could find their game before the playoffs. 4 games in the NHL tonight. Give me one play if you have any. Anything? I'm looking at the under in the LA Kings Islanders game. Islanders played last night. It's a tricky back-to-back for them, even though they barely played a team last night in the Anaheim Ducks. But I like the Kings to win a lower scoring game. If you could find a flat 6 out there, I would roll with that. Jake, thank you so much. Great talking to you, man. Yeah, great to be on with you, Gil. Have yourself a nice week, guys. You too. Jake Hahn, everybody, from SiriusXM. With so many bottles to choose from, it's easy to find your favorite, all at the lowest prices for over 30 years. Find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine & More. Drink responsibly. Be 21. College hoops on the other side. Le Batard next on the DK Network. We're coming back at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.